Are you considering competing in the HYROX games, or have you just done so? Whether you're a beginner or someone who's intermediate to advanced, I'm going to show you exactly how to level up your athletic ability so that you can compete at a better level. You should firstly increase your absolute and relative strength. Absolute strength refers to the amount of strength and maximal output that you can do for one rep. So it's a measure of maximum force production that you can do, whether it's a push, a pull, a deadlift, a throw, or a pull-up, or whatever. How much can you do for one rep? Absolute strength is generally determined by genetic factors, muscle fiber makeup, cross-sectional area, and neural factors such as muscle activation and muscle recruitment. However, it can still be trained and still be improved. So yes, there is a huge genetic component to how much absolute strength and how strong you can actually be. However, it's still a quality that you have to train and get good at, because the stronger you can be, the easier the stations will be. And that makes sense, right? If you do a competition and you suck on the sled push or the sled drag, and then you work on increasing your absolute strength on the back squat, the deadlift, a chin up, when you compete again, those exercises are gonna be easier. That makes total sense. So absolute strength is a must. Focus on getting as strong as possible. Now, you should also work on increasing your relative strength, which is different to absolute strength. Now, relative strength is how much force you can produce relative to your body mass, your body weight. Now, generally, lighter individuals have more potential to have high levels of relative strength. And that's important because the greater the level of relative strength that you have, when it comes to body weight exercises and drills such as burpee broad jumps and running, you're going to be less fatigued and you're going to be more efficient at moving your body weight through space, running, burpee broad jumps, etc. Now, I'll give you an example between absolute strength and relative strength and how they may differ for you. Now, if I have athlete A and athlete B, they both have an absolute strength level that is the same, right? This guy can back squat 150 kilos, and this guy, athlete B, can also back squat 150 kilos. If athlete A weighs 80 kilos and athlete B weighs 70 kilos, my guy who's 70 kilos, athlete B, is going to be able to apply greater relative forces into the ground, which will help his sprinting and his running and his body weight drills. He has a higher level of relative strength, although both levels of their absolute strength are equal. So yes, as much as you want to improve absolute strength and overall strength, we also have to consider relative strength, how strong we are relative to our body mass. Now, what's important to understand is that your relative strength can also improve if you just work on absolute strength. A few simple ways to increase absolute and relative strength is to get good at the basics. The chin-ups, the squats, the front squats, the back squats, the deadlift, the bench presses, and all of those exercises in between. Focus on increasing your 1 to 3 rep max, but also work on improving your 6 to 8 rep max and how many reps you can do at higher loads. The second way to level up in preparation for your HYROX competition is to periodize your strength and power training. So once you start developing those qualities and improvements of relative and absolute strength, you then need to make sure, just like you would with the cardio, everything needs to be planned, periodized, so that you can peak in time for your competition. It's important to understand that strength and power training is very dependent on the central nervous system and how well you are recovering. Now, if you do have a planned strength and power program in place, this should take care of recovery. If you are working on the strength side of things, you should be able to maintain that strength for about 30 days. Whereas power, there's a lot less of a window to maintain that. There's about 7 days. So if you don't train a particular power skill or power-based training, you can lose that power within 7 days. And that's because it's more central nervous system taxing than strength is. So that's another reason why you need to have deload periods and peaking periods nearer to your competition so that you can peak your power when it needs to be peaked. So at its basic level of understanding, the further away you are from your competition, you need to train generally. And as you get closer to your competition date, you need to get more specific. So the further out you are and the more general training you are doing, there should be minimal power work and moderate to high levels of strength and hypertrophy work. And as you get closer to that competition, you get more specific and you increase the amount of power training and moderate the amount of strength work that you're doing and minimize the amount of hypertrophy work you are doing. So another simple way to understand general training when you're far away from the competition is to pick exercises that are strength-based in nature, use rep ranges that are of higher rep ranges, and use exercises that are of longer full range of motions. So it could be deep squats, it could be snatch grip deadlifts, it could be full cleans, full snatches. It could also be sled drags, but sideways sled drags. It could be farmer carries with kettlebells and barbells. And of course, overhead presses and chins. As you get closer to your competition, we move into that specific phase. And now you can start using power squats, which are sort of quarter rep squats, and power cleans and power snatches. And these sort of exercises are exactly that. Shorter in nature, more powerful in nature, and ones that are really gonna fire up that central nervous system and help you produce force and power. These specific exercises could also incorporate the competitive lifts, such as the sled pushes, the sled drags, the farmer carries, etc. So these will look a little bit more sport specific than when you are far out and doing general work. So those shorter ranges of motions will allow you to move faster with heavier loads, which will have a huge transfer and correspondence to your stations and cardio training. And lastly, you must periodize your conditioning. When you are far out from your competition, again, generally you need to develop a cardiovascular base. That cardiovascular base should be all about creating a high level of cardiac output, how much blood you can get into the heart for long sustained periods of time. So I've said it in other videos, working on 5 to 10K is ideal for steady state work. Trying to keep heart rate between 130 to 150 beats per minute. As you get closer to your competition, then you can start training and working on those anaerobic pathways, those interval methods, those fartlek methods, and those threshold methods. Now, when it does come to those anaerobic training sessions, don't just do bloody WODs and go out and do stupid interval sessions. You have to plan and periodize the amount of volume that you're using and also the intensity and paces and recovery periods that you're using. I can't stress that enough. The amount of rest and recovery is very important so that you are working correctly with the work to rest ratios. Let's take the rower for example. Now in your competition, you're only doing 1K. Early on in your general prep, you may want to do 1K, 2K, 3K so that you can build your aerobic base. As you get closer to your competition and we get more specific and we're working on those anaerobic qualities, you may want to do 100 meters as fast as possible. You may want to take a 1:5 work to rest ratio. So let's say you do 100 meters in, let's say 20 seconds for mathematical sake. Hopefully you're doing it quicker. If you do 100 meters in 20 seconds, you're going to take 5 times the recovery. What is that? That's 2, 4, 6, 1 minute. 1 minute, 40 seconds to recovery. You may do that 8 to 12 or more times. That's working on the power output of the anaerobic system. You can then work on the capacity side of the anaerobic system. Now you may choose to do 100 meters again, but this time you may rest less. You may only take 1 minute to recovery. So 20 seconds on, 1 minute to recover. That's a 1:3 work to rest ratio. In my opinion, I would rather people work at longer rest periods when they're working on their anaerobic power side. So maybe 1 to 10 work to rest ratios. If it takes you 20 seconds to do 100 meters, take 2 to 3 minutes to recover, because it's all about the quality of work and the time and the power that you can maintain and produce. Whereas the capacity side is exactly that. It's can you maintain high level of quality work, but for longer rounds and longer periods of time. It's where we need to bring those rest periods down. So maybe 1:5 work to rest ratio works well on this. So to summarize that information, you need to focus on improving your absolute levels of strength. How strong can you be on the squat, on the deadlift, on those basic fundamental movement patterns. And then with that, you need to increase your relative strength level, how strong you are relative to your body mass. This is where nutrition comes in play. Are you eating properly to fuel the body? And don't just think because you're training a lot, you can eat burgers and junk food, because you're going to put weight on. And if you are putting body fat on, that's dead weight. It's not going to help you be efficient when it comes to competition. And then you need to periodize your strength and power training so that you can improve in this linear fashion, but having deloads and rest and breaks over those forthcoming weeks towards your competition. And so that ultimately you can have a deload or a taper right out from your competition, whether that's 5 days or a week, and then peak so that you can be powerful and strong. And lastly, just like the other tip, periodize your conditioning and your fitness work. Thanks very much for taking the time to listen. I hope that helped. If you think that was a good video, please like, please share, pass it on to whoever you think that may help, and support my channel. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day.